was the summer of 2014, and for my son's bar mitzvah present, just like many Jewish parents, we wanted him to bond with the Holy Land. Oh, it worked perhaps too well. My husband had stayed back at the hotel, and our friends, my son and I, had just stopped in a pharmacy.
Run to the bomb shelter, sweetie, please hurry. I didn't hear the sirens at first, but the Israelis did. They're used to hearing these things. We ran to the back of the storeroom. It was a 12-foot by 24-foot windowless bomb shelter. My heart's pounding. Boom! Boom! I hear and feel the percussion of the exploding bombs. I'm trying not to get sick. I look at my 13-year-old son and I think I'll never forgive myself if something happens to him.
That's an excerpt from a speech I gave to the Orange County Jewish Bar Association. It was the first, but not the last time we had to run to a bomb shelter. Our adventure and my transformation is also the subject of my book, Blasted from Complacency, A Journey from Terror to Transformation in Israel. There is no chapter in a parenting book on what to do when a war starts and you're on a family vacation. Think touring extraordinary and sacred sites mixed with cowering in bomb shelters. I'm still trying to get over the Jewish guilt of taking my son to war for his bar mitzvah present. The impact of being human targets helped me understand the plight of Israelis living like this, and it also made me want to work on peace. How Israel is often described on the news is not what I'd seen with my own eyes. And I felt Palestinian parents also preferred their children playing safely in their backyards. The missiles exploded just near enough to blow apart my world as I knew it, forever changing me. And you'd never recognize my life today with what it was like then. I believe I found my life's purpose. Hello, I'm Penny ST, and I'm the host of Peace with Penny. Today we'll continue our discussion about the Eastern Mediterranean International School in Israel, or EMIS, with two of their students, one Jewish Israeli and a Muslim Palestinian. EMIS is the high school that brings together Israeli Jews and Arabs, Palestinians, and international high school students from across national and cultural divides for a life-changing educational experience. Today, we won't be using the students' real names, and we also don't intend to show their faces during the interview, but we will hear their answers to our questions. Why? In what we hope is an overabundance of caution, the fact remains that due to potential anti-normalization dangers, we wanted these courageous teens to be and feel safe. It is such an honor to speak to the next generation that will hopefully fix this Middle East mess we've left them. Speaking with the students leading up to our interview was inspiring, and if other students are as impassioned to improve their reality, we're in great hands. Having the opportunity to hear what it's like to go to high school with the other, as well as the impact of living with people from so many different cultures and the influence it's had on them personally, was a lesson in remaining open to new experiences, truly listening, confronting their own perceptions, and ultimately transformation. Admittedly, it made me want to be a teenager again and share some of the experiences they've had. What a unique opportunity filled with growth and possibility. The school's motto, the School for Change, fits their experience in many different ways. A nonprofit founded in 2014, EMIS is home to 190 students. 20% are Israeli Jews and Arab, 20% come from Arab and Muslim nations, and 60% hail from 40 other countries around the world. Each brings their own identity and perspective, and together they weave a colorful tapestry that welcomes difference while finding common ground. Students live and learn together for 2 years in a vibrant community that celebrates pluralism, nurtures entrepreneurship, and fosters outstanding academic skills. EMIS offers students several academic tracks to pave their way to the best of higher education. Their academic curriculum follows the International Baccalaureate Diploma Program. The social and educational EMIS experience teaches diversity, dialogue, and the value of peace. EMIS also teaches respect for the environment and promotes sustainability as a way of life. So let's get started. Welcome, Yonatan and Dana.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Dana, and I should say that Dana is Palestinian and a girl, and that Yonatan is a boy and is our Israeli student. To get an interesting perspective, I just wanted to spend a little time asking you what you thought about Uvalde. Yonatan, let's start with you. What did you think about what happened in Texas at the high school?
First of all, I think that obviously it's terrible. I think it's, and every parent that send their children to a high school shouldn't be expecting or afraid, or shouldn't be afraid from something like this. And I think it shows what a problem the United States have with gun control, and how the laws are not restricting enough people's ability to buy guns. And I think it's absurd that people can buy guns with much less problem and go through much less trouble than to do other stuff like abortion or many other stuff that should be much easier than buying guns.
How about you, Dana?
I definitely agree with Jonathan. It's like truly tragical to hear those type of news. And I mean, this is not something new to the US. Like gun control has been an issue for a really long time. And I think that it's very sad to, again, see children who don't have anything to do with guns or anything that is harmful are getting killed, just because, again, guns are easier to get, and it's like truly very, very sad.
Do either of you have to worry about extremists at school?
Here, no, we don't have to worry about anything like this. Also, gun control in Israel is much more restricting than in the United States, and therefore we see much less cases of mass shootings than what we see in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, like, dangerous things may happen. Like, I mean, they could happen anywhere, but it will never, I don't know, like it never reach the scale of the things that are happening in the US right now.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that it is the case. But anyway, let's talk about something much happier. How would you describe EMIS, Yonatan?
I think EMIS is a school that gives you a unique opportunity to meet a lot of people from a lot of different places, and especially for me as an Israeli, to meet Palestinians is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think just by putting us in the same place and showing us who the other side, and also people from other cultures, who they really are, it allows us to learn a lot.
It's a little bit confusing to me in that, and I think to other people, because Israelis and Palestinians live, next to each other. However, I understand that they don't necessarily associate with one another. Did you care to comment on that?
Yes, like technically we do live close to each other. There's also Palestinians in Israel, Arab Israelis, and it's not like we never see the other side, but I don't think we get the opportunity to actually talk to the other side the same way we get here.
How about you, Dana?
I really like, I think EMIS is a very, very unique place. And I really consider it my second home because all of my friends here are here, and all of the people that are like helping me through my journey are also here. I think it's very nice because we learn a lot. Like every day we learn new things that will help us in our future. And not only academic things, I'm talking about life things that we learn through situations that we're put in, through relationships, through problems. And I think I would never be able to learn those lessons unless I'm in such a unique community.
Now, you've actually had an extra year there. You have been
Yeah,
there since 10th grade, right?
yeah, yeah,
And your home is Ramallah, correct?
yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what life at home is like?
Um, I mean, I live in a I live in Ramallah, so I feel like Ramallah is less politically involved than other cities in Palestine. Um, but other than that, like, I don't know, my life was kind of like, I would say, comfortable, other than like, of course, freedom of movement and like trying to get to other places is a bit more complicated. Um, but other than that, like, I think it was like, it was good. It was just less challenging than how MS is right now, because I've never like lived in a community where like there's a lot of Israelis around me.
Mhm.
And I feel like being here is really like building my personality like much, much more stronger than it was.
How about you, Jonathan? Where do you live and what's it like there?
I live in Tel Aviv. Um, and for me, my life are pretty much the same as the life of any anyone that lives in the United States or in Europe, or actually in every developed country. Yes, my life are not very much different than anyone else's. I don't live the conflict the same way Dana does, and the conflict is not a part of my daily life. Um, and yes, being here in EMIS really, it helps you to, like, as Dana said, build your personality and grow in a way that I don't think I'd be able to get if I stayed uh, back home in my normal public school.
Yeah. So Emmis is a boarding school, but uh, the international students obviously can't go home on the weekends, but you both live close enough to have that opportunity. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, Dana, if you could describe though, what is it like getting to and from school?
Getting what?
Getting to and from
Oh,
school.
um, I mean, like going back home is not as complicated because when you enter the West Bank from like the Israeli territory, you don't really have to go through a checkpoint. But when I want to leave the West Bank, I have to. And it's kind of like, I mean, I feel like the checkpoints are the one thing in my life that I will never be able to get used to. Like I go through other tough things in my life, but I tend to like, I usually get used to them and be like, this is what it is. Like, um, it's fine. But with checkpoints, it's a very intense when you go through them, because I feel like anything that I might do will be perceived as like something threatening, and anything might happen to me. They're very dangerous. They're very dangerous places, and anything could happen at any time. And like every time I come back to the school, after I come back like from going through the checkpoints, I like ask myself like, why do I have to go through all of this in order to come and make peace here while I'm going through all of those checkpoints and all of those um, things? So it really makes me question a lot of things.
So do you ever take it further and ask I mean, obviously, because of the number of terror attacks, et cetera, there, even in the US, when we, go to the airport or wherever, we also get checked. Do you ever think about whether or not that makes sense? If you were in that position, how would you handle, wanting people to be safe?
I mean, I it's not only about the idea of the checkpoint, it's also about the way that the soldiers on the checkpoints treat Palestinians. That's the main thing that bothers me, not the checkpoint itself, but the way that Palestinians are being treated on checkpoints.
What's that
And
like?
I mean, they treat you in a way that you're basically less valuable and less important than they are, and they would have this attitude of like just basically being like purely like rude to the person in front of them. And they wouldn't mind screaming at people. They wouldn't mind just deciding not to let people enter, even though they have the permanent and like they have the permit and everything. A lot of situations happen on the checkpoint.
Have you had that happen before to you?
I mean, like there's a lot of stories, but the main one that like happened to me like a while ago was I was at the checkpoint and I had my belt on, and when you go through the thing that checks if you have anything in your pockets, if you have your belt on, it will ring.
Oh,
So I forgot my belt on, and then the soldier was like hysterically like screaming at me like I just committed a crime. And I was very nervous. Like I thought, like I was very scared because like I'm just a girl who's like going through a checkpoint. I'm just a 16-year-old going through a checkpoint, and a soldier is like screaming at me with their gun and everything. So it was pretty traumatizing, to be honest. It wasn't like and it was just a very like tough situation.
boy, sorry that happened.
It's okay.
Why did you go to EMIS?
Me?
Yeah, why did you choose to go there?
Well, my sister was here before me, but generally, I felt like I wanted something new. I was just very sick of like living the same day and like being in my school that I didn't feel like it served me what I wanted to be served, education wise, and I felt it was too comfortable for me and I wanted to be uncomfortable. So I decided to go to EMIS, and and I wanted to like get a better educational system than like the one in Palestine.
What were the options to go to school there?
I mean, we have one IB school, but it's very expensive and they don't really give scholarships. And
so you were able to get a scholarship to go to EMIS?
Yeah, I was able to.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How about you? Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, and yeah, just like we have one IB schools, and like the system is called Tojihi, and it's a very bad system. So, yeah.
How about you, Jonathan? Why did you end up at EMIS?
I was in a pretty good public school in Tel Aviv, and the level of the studies was pretty high. But I still felt like eventually I'm going to school and I'm bored, and the school is not interesting enough. The people there, I love them, they were my friends, but I really wanted to try a new experience. And I think I very quickly understood that inside the Israeli education system, I won't be able to find anything new or better than my previous school. So once you start looking outside of the system, there's not many options. And yeah, and when the idea of EMIS came up, I was really it really interested me, because I think, like, first of all, the option to do the international baccalaureate, and also the opportunity to meet like people from all around the world, and especially Palestinians, it sounded very, very interesting to me. And I wanted to try something new. And on top of that, it's a boarding school. So
Mhm.
it's a new and really interesting experience.
Had you been away from home before?
Not for more than a week or two.
Yeah. How about you, Dana?
No, I've never been like far away from home.
Wow. That that was a big leap.
Yes, it was.
So, where are each of your roommates from?
My roommates, I have a roommate from Belgium and another one from Albania.
Um, I have a roommate from Palestine, a roommate from Israel, and a roommate from Albania.
So, Jonathan, what was that like? Well, I guess in general, for meeting your first Palestinians and one who's going to live in the same room as you.
Look, I didn't come with any hatred towards Palestinians.
Mhm.
So I honestly cared more about how is he going to be like, and is he going to be a nice person, and am I going to have fun living in a room with him? And I think once you get to know the person, you don't think about him as Palestinian, or just think about them as a person, about what you know about him, about like how is he like. And once you get to know like the people behind the like title Palestinian, like it's not a problem. It's just he's a nice person, nothing more than that.
How about for you, Dana? Your roommates, and then what was it like as you began to meet the Israelis? I think the first Israeli you had was your counselor.
Yeah, like it was my first time like meeting an Israeli. I mean, I met Israelis before, of course, but
Sure.
not outside of like not in that way, not in that
Mhm.
form. And it was very interesting because I just never had that long of a conversation with an Israeli, and then I've never was able to build that like relationship with Israelis. And it was at first it was a bit off, like it didn't feel normal, of course, because this is like what we're taught. But then eventually I was like it should be normal, like it should be a
Mhm.
normal thing, because this is how like the solution will start.
Yeah. Do you get to speak with your family very often?
Yeah, like every day.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Jonathan?
Yeah, we speak on the phone. Like I speak with my parents and my grandparents.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very cool. So now I'd like to talk more about what the interactions are like between um, um, speaking with, you know, alternate for ease of speaking the other. So, Dana, so your only interactions with Israelis was what when you're at home?
Um, Basically on checkpoints. That was the only time that like I would like interact with Israelis.
And Jonathan, your interactions with well, Arab Israelis uh, are, is it, do you interact more with them? I know that
Uh,
there's a whole thing about some Arab Israelis like to be called Arab Israelis and some like to be called Palestinians, but those who live in Israel, is that a common thing that you do have more interactions with, or is it also like with the Palestinians who live in the West Bank, something that is not common?
It's not very common. You do meet Arab Israelis like in your daily life, but I didn't really had close connections with any Arab Israelis other than 2 or 3 students in my previous school that were Arabs. But not the same way you interact with them here.
Dana, what did you think about the other before coming to EMIS?
I mean, I was never raised in a very extreme household. My parents always taught me about Palestine and our right to freedom and what it means to be a Palestinian. Of course, that was always taught. But at the same time, they taught me that you shouldn't hate people, you shouldn't hate people. You shouldn't just hate people for being to belong to a specific nationality or anything. That was always taught to me. Since my only interactions with Israelis and the way that I viewed Israelis was just basically them being soldiers, I had a relation, just a feeling of madness and basically just discussed from Israelis, because this was my only interaction with them. But then after my sister came here and she was telling me stories about her Israeli friends and her Israeli teachers and all of that, I was like, okay, so it's not really only that. And then that idea improved more in my mind when I came here by my own and I experienced it.
I remember you telling me that, previously your only interactions were with Israelis with guns,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that left quite an impression on me. And when I was listening to Yonatan talking about the controls in Israel of guns previously, and just a few minutes ago, when the world Israel is portrayed as this, everything's military and guns and machine guns and so on, there's this different perception. And I remember during our pre-interview that Yonatan, you were telling me that more about the restrictions on guns, and even the soldiers can't take them home because there were too many accidents. It was a extremely different perception that, here Israel is portrayed as this big military, everything's guns and so on. And yet now, particularly over the last few days, there's been so much in the news that, it seems like the US is the Wild West and is the one who has the gun problem, obviously. Living at EMIS, Dana, have your feelings changed? Well, you've talked a little bit about experiencing Israelis, but how have your feelings changed towards Israelis since you've been there?
I mean, now I kind of taught myself that not all Israelis are the same. Because before, again, when the only time I met Israelis were when they're soldiers and they were holding guns. And they were basically just people in power that were scaring me since I was a child. And I just I met, when I came here and I lived here, I met a lot of different types of Israelis. Some of them were people that really made me feel like there's peace, there's good people in the world that will, with the help of other people, will be able to solve the conflict. And some Israelis that I met made me just feel like that's very sad that they think this way.
Mm-hmm.
So I just taught myself that not everyone is the same from all the countries and all like the cultures and everything. Like not everyone is the same.
What did you learn about Palestinians, Jonathan?
Well, I learned it, I think I grew up in a house where like I was taught never to hate anyone, also like based on where they come from or what's their nationality. And for me, I think the most interesting thing that I learned was like how different like the Palestinians and Israelis, how differently we see the same things, how the way like each of us here in the in their own media sources, how it shapes their opinions, and how like I read uh, about a certain I get a news flash and Dana shows me the same news flash that she got from a Palestinian source. And once you start to see how everything is told differently there, you start to understand how like you're not surprised anymore by the fact the other side sometimes don't understand you and you don't understand the other side.
Yeah, it's I think everyone's learning that, we can't just accept what we hear in the news because it's so skewed to however the news, what their beliefs are. How did you begin to have your interactions at school with the other? Did you just with your social guides who are like your counselors with how did you get introduced to one another, or is it just whoever showed up in your class? And
Yeah, exactly. Like I think the people who come here don't have any hatred towards the other side. The people who choose to come here know what they're going into and are pretty open-minded. So I think like for us, I think both for Israelis and Palestinians, it was pretty much like meeting, like when you meet people in person, it's pretty much like meeting every other person from every other country. Of course, there's also the political side, but it's at first you don't do the connection between the like political side and the personal side and who the person is. And like eventually I know here that even the Israelis with the more right-wing opinions and the Palestinians with the more anti-Israel or less
Mhm.
supportive of Israel, who has those opinions, eventually they also befriend, and no one hates another person because of their opinions, and also no one has very, very extremist opinions that would make other people hate them.
Yeah, like getting to know each other and talking with each other was very spontaneous, just like how everyone met everyone else. And like it's very important, like for me to like talk about the fact that we don't agree with each other on a lot of things. Like Israelis and Palestinians, we don't agree on a lot of things. Same with Palestinians and Israelis. Like
Mhm.
our political opinions are very, very different. But here at EMIS, you learn that if you don't politically agree with someone else, that doesn't mean that you have to hate them or not talk to them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Great. What's it like going to school with kids from all over the world?
Very cool.
It's very interesting. Like you get to learn things that there's no way you would have learned in your normal school, and
Like what?
like just you learn about people's culture, about how it could be even small things like what people find funny and what people enjoy doing. And it's also much harder, like
Mhm.
there's much less common ground and it's much harder to relate to people that way, but you get to learn a lot of things.
Well, starting with English, you have to use English, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
So
that's not easy.
that's challenging?
Yes, very much. For us, for me, Hebrew would be much easier, and we need
Right.
to study in English as well. And I'm sure for Dane, it's the same thing for Dana with Arabic.
Yeah, definitely. Like some subjects, it would be much simpler for me to study them in Arabic than in English. It's a bit challenging.
And even more than that, interacting with the people like in English.
Like
What?
also,
Go ahead.
it's also like it's maybe like talking, like general conversations daily would be easy, but like expressing feelings and sometimes expressing opinions would be easier in our native language.
And also, I think until you get here, you don't understand how much of like what you talk with your friends is like about. It's not necessarily about, but it very much involves your culture. And like I think here it's also much easier at least at the beginning for people to relate and befriend people from their own country, because that's something familiar that you know.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually you pass that barrier.
Yeah.
So is it then is there a different feeling when, say, you're talking to someone considered the other than when you're talking to an international student? Is there any more or less comfort, or they're just different types of challenges?
I think it's when it's a friendly talk, there's not much difference.
Yeah.
Actually, like our cultures are probably closer to each other than some of the international cultures.
Yeah.
So that's not.
Oh, interesting. So it can be
Go.
actually even easier when you're talking to somebody considered the other than it is when you're talking to an international student. That's really interesting. You both feel that way.
But like I think the main thing is that it's much easier to speak like to someone from your own country.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact our cultures are pretty similar, it does, like when you have almost no common ground at all with most people, it does give you something, even if it's not like something very important, or it's not a lot.
Were your parents interested in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
My parents, yes, very much.
So what did they tell you about it?
I think they know that, like they know that I'm interested in that as well. And I think they pretty much let me like go through this journey like on my own. They didn't guide me like of course if I needed them they would,
Yeah.
but they didn't tell me what to do or how to behave. Like I think it allowed me to explore things better and understand them on my own.
What got you interested in it?
I think it's the house I was raised in. Like my parents were all it was always very much in the home. The news were always open. I always read a newspaper in the morning. So, once it's always there, it's hard to ignore it. And eventually it also, I don't know why, but it interests me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think when things happen, particularly, it certainly gets people's attention. That's for sure. I'm interested. I believe Dana had told me we were talking, and when you were growing up, how did you look at peace? What did that mean to you?
I guess just being able to have my own country and like being able to return where I'm originally from, and just seeing all Palestinians coming together in their own country and their own land.
Did your view of peace involve Israelis at all?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, that's something that you had told me, that originally, that peace to you meant having your own people be able to live in their own land,
Yeah.
but not really peace between Israelis and Palestinians. That
I never thought of it that way before I came
Yeah.
to EMIS.
Yeah. And how do you think of it today?
I think more logically right now, and I think of things that seem fair to me and make sense to me. And I think that um, even though Israelis came to the land in a way that I definitely don't agree with whatsoever, but I think that right now we need to work on with what we have, and that involves having peace between the two nations. And yeah.
Growing up, had you ever learned about any historical background to Jews living on the land?
Yeah, like yeah, of course. But they were like, for us, like Palestinians, we believe that they were Jews, but they weren't like European Jews. They were Jews who were originally from this land. And for us, like, I mean, I've been always taught that like Judaism is a religion, but when I came here to MS, I started noticing how people consider it more than that, which is very interesting for me.
Mhm.
And to be honest, I still completely don't understand.
Yeah.
It's a bit complicated.
Oh,
So for
yes, of course. It's
yeah,
complicated for all of us.
yeah. So like when I was taught like the three religions, and how all of them were living here on this land, peacefully together. So yeah.
How about you, Jonathan?
I think for me, peace was the opposite. Like it was always, since I'm an Israeli and we have a country, and eventually, right now in this conflict, we are the winners, and we're the strong side. Peace has always been about, also about, like, not about us having a country, because we already have one, but about peace between Israelis and Palestinians, about Palestinians having their own country, and yet everyone living safely, and not warring, not having a war once every few years. And again, it's much less present in my daily life. It's other than times when there's war, it's not like, my life are pretty similar to the life of anyone who doesn't live in Israel.
Yeah,
Uh,
but there is violence going on now, and there certainly was in May of, but I think Dana was there because she, in 10th grade, she was there during the May 2021 violence.
Yeah.
When there's violence, how does that impact you at school?
What do you mean? Like,
What happens at school? Are there
I'm
different restrictions,
yeah, of course. Of course,
such as?
because the school holds a big responsibility upon the students that live here, and they always try to keep us safe. So when those type of things were happening, we were not allowed to go out of our campus. Yeah, basically we had to stay on campus because anything could happen at any second, and they didn't want to risk it.
And did you experience when the Palestinian missiles came to, did you have to go to the bomb shelters?
Yeah.
And was that a different experience than when you were at home?
I
And
mean, at home, like I live in the West Bank, I live in Ramallah, so Ramallah was never like we never experienced missiles there. They're only experienced in Gaza. When Israel sends missiles to Palestine, like to Gaza, and Hamas's like missiles when they were sent here, it was different because it's my first time experiencing such thing.
yeah, it
and I don't know.
only took once for me. I didn't want
Yeah.
any part of it.
Yeah, it was honestly, to be honest, I don't really remember that much of it. Like
Really?
now that I'm thinking about it, like I don't remember that much, but it was scary. I remember like everyone was very scared and it was concerning. It was a lot of people's like first experiences, so we didn't really know. And even like people who like this is not their first time, they were also scared because it's very scary.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was a bit confusing, I remember, because I wasn't at home because usually I hear about this in the news. I'm not actually experiencing it. So it's scary and interesting.
Yeah. I mean, was Iron Dome blowing up the missiles?
Yeah, like I don't remember like any big event happened.
Yeah. Even, as I often say, when if the missile, Iron Dome was blowing up the missiles where we were, we could definitely still feel the percussion on your skin, even if it was up in the air. And it was nothing that I cared to experience, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
It made a lasting impression. Have you also been around when there have been missile attacks, Jonathan?
Yes, I have, both in 2014 and last May. And I think it's, first of all, like, I remember 2014 as a little kid, it was very scary. And like, as I grew up, it's like what is more sad is understanding how as much as it's scary for me that I live in Tel Aviv, and that kind of thing happens to me once every few years, for the people who live next to Gaza, next to Gaza Strip in Israel, but in the towns next to Gaza, it's like much more of a daily life, because it doesn't happen like every day, but it happens much more often. And like, for them, it's much more dangerous as well. So
yeah, it's a very, very scary thing. And also the terror attacks are pretty vicious to deal with.
Even now things are a bit tense.
Yes.
So we're not allowed to go to Tel Aviv.
Oh, you can't go to Tel Aviv?
Yeah.
We can go like to places that are very close to campus, but not to Tel Aviv.
So you're not allowed to go back home on the weekend?
No, on the weekend we're allowed to, but like just go out with friends,
just socially?
That we're not allowed.
So how does that work? Do you just go anyway on the weekend to go back home, or do your parents come get you? Or
yeah, when it was really tense, then they allowed us to go out only when our parents, if our parents came and got us, which I think there were a few weeks when it meant Palestinians couldn't go out, or anyone who lives very far. But after these weeks passed, they allowed us to go home, but to go out, but just if it's like in order to go home.
So when you go home, how do you get there? I mean, like when it's normal, not now, but
For me now is now is like pretty normal. It's still a bit tense, but like it's normal enough for me to go like as usual, to take I take a bus, and
how
within
long
an
does it
hour.
take? An hour?
Yeah.
And how about you, Dana? What's the process for you to get to school? You also take a bus, right?
Yeah, so I take a bus to the train station, then from the train station to another train, and then from the train to another bus, and then to another bus, and then I get home.
How long does that take?
I mean, it depends on the traffic, of course, but the most time I've spent was like 4 hours. That was the maximum.
Oh my gosh. But what
Sometimes I get lucky
on
with like 3
normal,
hours.
on normal?
Normal, like I get lucky with like maybe 3 hours,
Oy,
three-ish.
oy.
Yeah.
And this you're all doing by yourself?
Sometimes it depends. Sometimes I would go by my own, and sometimes it would be with my other Palestinian friends who live in
Mm.
Ramallah or like in Nablus. We would go together.
And you're going the majority of time through Israeli towns or Palestinian?
What do you mean?
I mean, I'm wondering who you're interfacing with as you're making it to Ramallah. Are they generally Israelis, both Israelis and Palestinians? What?
I mean, it depends on the area. I mean, when I'm in my way, it's gonna be more Israelis, but when I reach Jerusalem, for example, it's gonna be a mix of both. It depends.
I remember you telling me that your mom tells you not to speak Arabic.
Yeah, like I try to avoid speaking Arabic in public as much as I can, just to avoid problems.
Have
Because
you
like
gotten into problems before because of that?
I mean, yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, maybe like 1 week ago, or like maybe 2 weeks ago, I was at the gas station next to my school, and me and my friends who are Palestinians, we were speaking in Arabic, and then a policeman came to us, and he pointed at us, and he spoke in Hebrew, and he said to his other policeman friend, they're Arabs, so let's just give them a ticket for not wearing masks, even though masks are not mandatory in Israel right now. Outside or inside, you don't have to wear masks.
So
And
how
then,
could they give you a ticket for that if they're not mandatory?
I mean, they stated the reason. They said they're Arabs. Let's give them a ticket
No,
for not
no,
wearing.
I understand that, but how do you get a ticket for something that's not against the law?
I mean, I'm really not sure what they were planning to do eventually, but that's what they said.
Mm.
And I mean, before that, I didn't really speak Arabic, but then I sometimes it's just naturally comes when you're with people who speak your language, you know.
And
Um,
how did you know what they were saying? You don't speak Hebrew, do you?
no, I don't speak Hebrew, but my other friends who live here, who are Palestinians, they speak Hebrew fluently.
I'm wondering if they misunderstood just because that doesn't quite make sense to me. I mean, I can understand that there can be a soldier who's being an idiot, but on the other hand, I don't understand how you can get a ticket for something that's not.
Look, it sounds weird to me as well, but honestly, like I know that person, and he speaks Hebrew fluently,
Mhm.
and I think that's not the majority of people, but in everywhere there's some people who would be racist and
Oh yeah,
do
yeah.
racist.
I don't, unfortunately, I wish it would be surprising to me, but it's not, to believe that some soldiers were acting like jerks. However, the exact wording isn't quite making sense to me, or therefore I kind of wonder about the interpretation of what was being said, just because how do you give a ticket for something that's not illegal to do? That's the
when
part
you
that I don't understand. But
when you know it's easier for people to pay the fine than to start going into negotiations with the all of the law enforcement system about whether it's legal or not. And when you want to be racist, you'll find a way, even if it's not legal.
you mean even if it's legal?
Even if it's not according to what the law says.
Yeah. Again, I'm having a problem. How do you give a ticket? Tickets are for things that are not supposed to happen. But if something's allowed to happen, how can you within the system give a ticket for it? It doesn't make sense. That's the part that anyway, neither here nor there. None of us were there or understood exactly what was going on. Bottom line, he probably was acting like a jerk, unfortunately. And that kind of stuff, unfortunately, does happen. I wanted to talk about well, first let's talk about, you have a great program that is called the peace simulation, and I wanted to let you talk about that. Dana, what's the peace simulation? And these are some pictures from the one that you just had recently in 2022.
Basically, the peace simulation is a program that happens once a year at EMIS. And basically, students in the school get divided into take like sides. So some students might be on the Israeli side, some students might be in the Palestinian side, and it doesn't matter where you're originally from, you will be placed randomly. And you will be shown a specific case. So for example, this year we did settlements, we did Jerusalem, we did water issues and different conflicts within the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And then we had to come up with a solution in each group.
And I understand you usually have to represent the other side. Is that correct?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I mean, it was interesting to kind of like explore. I was in the settlements group and I had to represent the Israeli side, which was very tough because I disagree with a lot of things, and one of them is definitely settlements. So
Yeah.
it was.
So how did you? What was that like? It's like, it seemed to me like it would turn your head on
Yeah,
it and
basically.
trying to do that.
Yeah,
And so how did you come up
interesting.
with defenses for it?
I mean, I kind of like just looked for things that like usually Israeli settlers used to defend their opinion and why they're living there, and they mostly use religion. So I used religion in that by saying that in the Torah it says that this is Judea and Samaria and we deserve to be here because we were here before. And then yeah.
And how about you, Jonathan? What was your role?
I was on the Palestinian side. I was also in the settlements group, and for me, I think it was much easier than it was for Dana, because I also disagree with the concepts of the settlements, and therefore I was actually in my own opinion, but like even when it's like this, it's still not easy to like go against your country, and it's not easy to completely like it's not easy to completely go and support the other side, even when, like, when you disagree about some of their opinions. Even when in this case I agreed with most of what the Palestinians say about the settlements.
So what do you think about settlements?
I think they're not good at all. They hurt the chances of peace, and I wish they weren't. I wish they didn't exist. But we, at the same time, we gotta. Although I dislike it, that right now we gotta make peace with the fact that this is the situation, and maybe small settlements will be evacuated if there will ever be peace, but the big settlements will never be evacuated. So
I'm sorry.
that's today's situation.
Dana, by taking the settler side and about Judea and Samaria and going through the process, did it change any of your opinions at all?
No, never.
Did you did it provide any more understanding?
No, I mean, like, there's some specific things in the conflict that, like, I will never be able to understand, I think.
Mhm.
And I feel like settlements and the army are one of them. So I was like, I don't know, even though, like, I was defending the Israeli side and I was speaking, and I know that none of my arguments were actually like that good because I couldn't find a good justification for settlements. So no.
So talking about another conflict of where things kind of got turned on their head for you, was, when you had to go to shelters because of the Hamas sending missiles.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
I mean, like, I didn't have that much. I've been always against what Hamas is doing, so it wasn't like a thing where, like, I was, okay, this is like new to me. I'm against this. It was a bit confusing, because they're like, as much as I disagree with them and I don't support this political party, they are still my people. So I kind of like felt like I don't want people in the school to think that this is what all Palestinians believe in, because that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
That was the most thing that was stressing me out. Yeah.
So what did you think about, now these are missiles coming toward you who could hurt you personally.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
I mean, of course, Hamas, they're not doing it like on purpose because they know there's Palestinians there.
Of course not, but
I mean, and they have their. I mean, I didn't really care, to be honest. Like, I
what do
didn't
you mean
think
you
about,
didn't care? You didn't care
like,
about what?
because I didn't really think about myself at that moment, because also people in Gaza were getting killed, and civilians were being harmed. So I thought it would be selfish of me, in a place of privilege where I have shelters and everything that could protect me, to be thinking of myself and what would happen to me. Because, to be honest, like, the chances of something happening to me weren't even that high. Like, they didn't even cross my mind because of the shelters and the Iron Dome and all of those type of things. So my mind was 24/7 just thinking of the people of Gaza and what's happening to them right now, and the fact that they have no shelters and they don't have what I have right now.
So you felt safe in Israel because of the protections of Iron Dome and the bomb shelters.
Yeah.
But in the reverse, did you or do you understand, in that moment, do you believe that Israel has a right to defend itself if they have missiles coming in against them?
I mean, what do you mean by defend themselves? By what? By harming other Palestinians? Of course not. By defending themselves, by just defending their people, of course, all countries have the right to defend themselves. That's not even a question. But
So how would you think would be the right course of action to defend themselves under those circumstances?
I mean, technically, they are defending themselves by having bomb shelters and the Iron Dome. I don't know if, like, I don't know why they consider defending themselves by harming other Palestinians who are civilians and have nothing to do with what's happening. I don't know. I'm not sure, but I'm not sure what they exactly should do, but definitely not harming Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Definitely.
Okay, let's get on to a really positive thing. You two came up with a great idea, and I'd like you both to share with us what that was. And I know you had your first meeting this morning, so I'm excited to hear how it went. But first, will you tell us what your idea was?
So our idea was basically to have talks between Israelis and Palestinians. We felt that in our daily life, we don't talk about the conflict enough. Like eventually we came here to a school with the other side, and we thought that if we left this place without understanding better what the other side thinks, and having like without actually having to open our minds, it would be a huge miss.
So you have periodic things, events, like big events like the peace simulation, and you live together, and you eat together and sleep together. But in your day-to-day life, you don't talk usually about the conflict, correct?
First of all, about the big events, those are events in which we are like, we do talk about it, but once those are like only one-time things, it loses, I think, a lot of its meaning, because there is no consistency there. There is no, like, you can't get into any real depth. And of course, the fact that there are internationals there who don't know, or both, like, first of all, they're there, which makes it a bit of a fight over the heart of the internationals. And also the fact that they don't know, most of them don't know anything about the conflict, makes it a bit hard to have a knowledgeable discussion.
So there's not any preparation given?
There are, but still, I think even if there are, before there, we had a few lectures, but still, from someone who for someone who has no knowledge at all about the conflict, even if you hear 5 or 6 lectures, it's a lot to process, and I don't think like people actually understand that. And like some people also, that they're not very interested about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.
So what was your plan of what you did? What did you come up with?
I mean, at first, after we talked about how we think there's a big need of conversations to happen between Palestinians and Israelis in the school, we talked with our Hebrew and Arabic teachers to give us time from their class to have our first meeting, which was today.
Yes, and we consulted with them and with the principal, and we came up with the idea of having some sort of discussions about 1 hour long each. That what we basically do is try to get the people to talk about the conflict. It's really as simple as that.
And these are
Today,
just Israelis and Palestinians, correct?
just Israelis and Palestinians, because, like, to put it simply, we don't want internationals there, because then it would turn into a fight.
Mm.
Because each one wants to defend its side,
Yeah.
and that we won't go anywhere with like when the internationals are there.
Yeah, exactly. And then we kind of like thought what would be the best topic to talk about in the first meeting, because
Mhm.
we kind of wanted it to be interesting so people would like to come again, but at the same time we didn't want it to be hard and like overwhelming because it was the
Right.
first meeting.
So what did you talk about?
So so what we talked about, what we did is basically prepared 10 questions from like about a lot of things, ranging from what do you think about the two-state solution or other solutions? Where do you think was your side was wrong? And what question would you like to ask the other side that you've never understood? And like a few more questions. And
Mhm.
we gave people a few basic instructions to what we think is the way to have a respectful and respectful discussion, and discussion that will result positive consequences and understanding of each other, and not just arguing. And we basically just divided people into small groups,
Mhm.
two Palestinians and 3 Israelis in each group, and we let them talk. We let them take a question and talk about it. And we moved between the groups to help them at the beginning, but very like after a very short amount of time, people started like talking about it. And for me, it was really amazing to see how Israelis and Palestinians can talk. And that's, I think, the first time I actually seen people talk about it and they were excited about it. And like when people are given the platform, I think it could really lead to good things and understanding.
Yeah, definitely. It was very interesting to see because again, like we're so busy with our lives here that we forget
Mhm.
the reason why we came here. And seeing people that have known each other for almost a year talking about things that they never talked about was very nice to see. And I feel like people really enjoyed it and everyone was interested, even though it was 8 a.m. in the morning. People were actually like they sat together and they actually talked and discussed, and it was very nice.
So that was early for you?
I think it was. We were afraid that people will not cooperate, and it was very relieving to see how much like they cooperated and went into that.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That sounds terrific. I wish I was a fly on the wall. So for your last question for each of you, do you believe that there'll ever be peace between Israelis and Palestinians?
I think I'm really skeptical about it. I'm not sure it will ever happen, and I think like right now I know for sure about how the political situation in Israel is going. I think the country is only getting more right wing, and people hatred towards Palestinian increases, and people are more racist. They want peace less, and I really don't think that in the near future peace is attainable. But I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah. And you, Dana?
I definitely agree with Jonathan. I feel like I want it to happen, definitely. I want everyone on this land to be able to live in peace and to live together. Will it happen? That's the question. Every day I have a new opinion. With every events that are happening, I change my mind. I never have like a specific answer for this question, but I hope it happens, like, and like at least we should try. Like, yeah, maybe it's not gonna happen for sure, but I don't want to be part of the people that were, it's not gonna happen, let's not try, let's just sit down and be part of it.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, I want to at least be part of the people that like tried to make
Mhm.
change and make peace.
Well, I certainly appreciate your attempt. And
Thank you.
as always, I think the most special thing is that what we learn from the next generation, and your thoughts are admirable, and keep up the fantastic work. It was music to my ears, definitely, to
Thank
hear
you.
what the two of you are trying to do.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for your time today, Yonatan and Dana. It was so interesting to get the perspective from young people of your generation about the prospects for peace. Unfortunately, you didn't have good news, but we're hoping the reality will change. As Dana said, from day to day, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so how you're preparing yourselves to be involved, to take action is fantastic, and at least move the process forward in a positive direction to try to understand one another. It's a basic
Yes, definitely.
beginning, right?
Yeah,
So,
definitely. And thank you very much
Thank you.
for giving us the opportunity to speak and to like say our opinions and
Yeah.
what we think and believe. And
well, definitely my pleasure. Next week, we will be interviewing Khair Albaz, chairman of the Arab Jewish Center for Empowerment, Equality, and Cooperation at the Negev Institute for Strategies of Peace and Economic Development. They are a nonprofit organization dedicated to social change and Arab Jewish partnership based in Beersheba. Founded in 2000, the organization works to promote sustainable development among communities in transition as a foundation for the establishment of prosperous and equal communities living in peace. Programs operate inside of Israel with partners from the wider Middle East for beneficiaries from across the developing world. They are one of Israel's largest civil society organizations, employing over 200 women and men and engaging 1,300 volunteers. The organization's areas of engagement include community volunteerism, quality early childhood education, socioeconomic development, health promotion, and Arab Jewish partnership. We hope you'll join us, and for now, may you live in peace, shalom, and salam.